How you doing again?
Good.
How you doing again? You know, I get a kick out of the fact that you put three musicians on stage and some of them are reading, and so obviously they're doing this just about for the first time, and they try very hard to work together. Do you ever see three politicians on stage? You notice that you never see three politicians on stage because they won't let that happen. I'd actually like to see that happen. I'd like to see three people get up here and say that they're actually going to work together. Very interesting things that I noticed here. For example, when Robert Ross sang before, that was right after I had spoken, and I didn't realize how good the segue was. I mean, his anti-war song actually mirrored what I was saying. And I realized that he said it a lot better than any one politician could ever say it up here, so I do want to say thank you to him. And then I hear Jonathan over here. Where's Jonathan? I don't see him. Jonathan, there you go. You did a great job, I got to tell you. And I'm listening to you here, and you're talking about Katrina, and I'm hearing that. And actually, that's a great segue into what I'm about to speak to right now. You know, before we talked about the war, and I said that one of the other things that's a very big important part of my campaign is when I talk about energy, which is really just another way of saying that ecology. A lot of people don't know that last year, Katrina was really part of global warming. But global warming is something that's very abstract to most of the people in the United States because they've never really been directly affected by it. And last year, I told you I'm from Bay Ridge. There's actually a seawall over there. Has anybody ever been on the bike path over there? It's a beautiful bike path that they have there. Great bike path. That bike path actually fell into the sea after 10 years of telling our elected officials, incidentally, I don't want to get too much into that, but after telling one specific elected official who happens to be from Staten Island that he finally found the money to do something for it, and then he took credit when he really should be taking blame for the fact that it fell into the sea. But the primary reason that it fell into the sea, that was determined by the Army Corps of Engineers, was because when it was built back in the 1930s, it was about 3 inches below the topping point. And now it actually started coming up over it, and they said that's because of the rise in sea level. So what you're really seeing is the effects of global warming right here in the Bay Ridge, Bklyn section, and or rather Staten Island section, and that's something that we really do have to address. And some people say, like if you've seen Al Gore's movie recently, that you have maybe about 10 years before that this has, you're going to have what they call the tipping point. A tipping point means where the ice masses will have melted to the point where we won't be able to reverse it. We're going to be watching within the next 50 to 100 years large portions of the Staten Island shoreline that are actually going to be pushed back. And that's really a terrible thing. And we really have to do something about that, and we don't really have a lot of time. And when you really think about it, there's really 3 reasons why we have to attack this. One of them, the primary reason from my point of view, is ecology and the environment. But there's also a matter of what we call national defense that's involved here. And if you really think about it right now, think about the war in Iraq. It's really an oil war. Doesn't everybody agree that's what it's really all about, okay? Yes. I mean, that's what it is at its base. Okay, if you want to do something over there, if you want to stop that oil war, and you recognize right now that we've just about reached something called peak oil, and peak oil basically means that the price of oil, you're going to see gasoline, sure, it's going to come down just in time for the election, so that we know what's going to happen there. Watch what it is at Christmas time, okay? So you're going to see it go like this for years, but it's always going to trend upwards to the point where you're going to be paying, let's say, instead of, what are we paying now, $3 a gallon, so 2 years from now, you'll be paying 6, then you'll be paying 10, and that's also going to happen to your home heating oil. And the question is, the United States will get to a point where we have to make a determination. Can we heat our homes in the winter and keep our children warm, or do we attack this year instead of Iraq, Venezuela, okay, and decide that we like their oil because we have no choice? And I think that the United States has to be a much better place than that. It's got to be something that realizes that we just can't attack other people's lands for our purposes. And so there is a solution. And the solution is that we have to have a real energy policy, not the one that's being pushed by a fellow by the name of George Bush. We have to do something within about 10 years that we make ourselves totally independent of oil, so that we have windmills, and we have geothermal, and we have ethanol, and we have all the alternatives. And if we can do that under those circumstances, then we don't have to rely upon the oil of those people that we are trying now to dominate, and we can live an independent existence. I'm not saying isolationist, there's a big difference, but we will be able to go and pursue our own destinies as as an American people, as Middle Eastern people, and whatever we have to do. I hope you're with me on that, because that's the kind of thing that we have to do. Understand this. I talked about it just now. I just talked about it as being a matter of the environment, and I talked about it as being a matter of the national defense. It's also a matter of economy when you think about it. Oddly enough, it might be actually that time when you have that critical mass that comes together. The left has been talking about this for 10 years, or for 30 years they've been talking about it, saying we have to do this. And 10 years ago, if I was giving this speech, I'd be called a tree hugger from the left, right? Isn't that what I'd be called? And now we recognize that everybody from the right sees the problem. Suddenly the corporations are coming on board. They're beginning to realize it. This is the time that we really have to push this. It's time that the people who see it from an economic point of view, and those people who see it as something that's our heritage, our environment, it's something that we want our children to live, these lives that are healthy and safe in the environment. All those things can come together right now, but we need the right leadership. We need the right leadership here in Staten Island and in Brooklyn, and we need the right leadership in Washington, D.C. if we want this to happen. You know something? We don't have 2 years to wait. We don't have 2 years to wait. We must neutralize the Bush agenda, and we have to do it now. Okay? If we don't, there's a lot of other things we can talk about here today. I can talk about our education, we can talk about Social Security, we can talk about many, many other things. I just wanted to talk about these two things to tell you right now. We must neutralize the Bush administration now. If we don't do it 2 years from now, it'll be too late, because they'll pass too many things. It will be absolutely irretrievable. Thank you all for having me here tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you, Phil. Carolyn, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I got to say one more thing. I can hardly wait to hear Brian Kasuba, because he is my campaign manager. And he's doing this right now, totally voluntarily, as you can guess. Thank you all.
Get a reaction.
Thanks, Steve.